Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Core Philosophy series. Now, just in case you didn't watch the last one, I will leave a link down in the description. But the last one we covered, what is it? Meaning, what is philosophy itself? We covered that philosophy is an area, and that it is an attitude, method, application, and system. Beyond that, today we will be covering the topic of common ground, which I alluded to at the end of last episode. Now, common ground, well, let's just delve right into it, and we'll get into the details and specifics. So first off, common ground has 4 aspects. One being reason, the other being integrity, the third being rational perceptualism, and the final one being clarity. Now, all 4 of these basically go deeper into common ground. But first off, it's very important to understand what common ground is in itself before we learn these key aspects. Well, common ground is an epistemologically necessary conditions to have thought and discourse. Basically, when 2 individuals or more, maybe even a body of people in a society, meet together, they want to talk about certain topics or even political topics or controversial topics even. These all need some type of framework to be able to be successful. And that's what thought and discourse is. Now, common ground you can think of as the foundation needed for proper thought and discourse. So in a way, common ground allows individuals to communicate very complex ideologies and be able to have that goal of finding truth. It kind of helps to eliminate the influences of bias, assumptions. It kind of tries to negate those and focus more primarily on the thought and discourse aspect. So first we will delve into reason. Now, reason is the opposite of the other forms of knowledge, being senses, intuition, tradition, common sense, and revealed religion. All of these that I just named are other forms of thought. So first off, reason is the self-evident process that shows that we think in forms of concepts, judgments, and arguments. It is also self-attempting through self-referential assertity, which this basically just means that it can correct itself. And if it was able to define itself, then that would be an SRA, which is like self-referential absurdity. It basically means like if you have to use reason to define reason, then you're using the definition to define the very thing you're defining. So it's a never-ending loop, and that's a self-refuting of absurdity. Now, reason is also natural, so it occurs on its own within all human beings, and ontological, which means that it applies to all beings. We're going to delve into concepts, judgments, and arguments, because these are very important to understand within reason. Concepts are basically the essence of the thing, which basically means, like, if I say a pen, the idea of a pen is a concept, but concepts are able to expand further into judgments, which are where you kind of put 2 or more concepts together. So if I have 2 concepts, pen and blue, and I say the pen is blue, I'm tying those 2 concepts together to make a judgment. My judgment is that the pen is blue. So now judgments are able to be combined together to make arguments, which can typically be expressed as syllogisms. So if I say, like, if I have the concept of pens, write, and blue, I can say this: pens can write. Pens can be blue. Therefore, blue pens can write. So by combining judgments together, we're able to make arguments. So we're now going to delve into the next topic, which is the laws of thought. This is very important, and in the epistemological side of things, when we go into the series that will delve in epistemology, these laws of thought will be vital. First off is the law of identity, which is that a thing is a thing. So like A is A. It's very simple. So like a notebook is a notebook. Now, law of non-contradiction. Something cannot be A and not A. This basically, and this is the same respect and same time. So that notebook cannot be a notebook and not a notebook. It has to be one or the other. It can't be both. And then the law of excluded middle. Basically is saying the same as 2, but what I said at the end to explain number 2. It's called the law of excluded middle, and it basically just means something must be either A or not A. So what the law of non-contradiction is saying is something cannot be A and not A, while the law of excluded middle is saying something must be either A or not A. They're pretty similar, but one's using an and the other one's using an or, and in epistemology we will explain that in greater detail. Now, reason is an authority to what is and what is not true. It can be used to interpret worldviews for consistency, which will now delve into why I said earlier that the opposite of reason is senses, intuition, tradition, common sense, and revealed religion. Well, senses tend to be a way that we know through interaction with the 5 bodily senses. The intuition tends to be a way where we have like a gut feeling based off of past experiences or tradition or any other type of things where we have that gut feeling that something is the way it is. Experience is your past encounters. So like if I know that it's like fire is hot, then that's knowledge I know through experience. Tradition is cultural impressions or opinions. This typically works for assumptions. If you're raised in a Christian household or any other type of household or society, you tend to have the beliefs of that society. Does that mean you actually have knowledge? No. It means that you have the assumptions and traditions of the society. And then revealed religion, this is biblical texts, scriptures, basically anything you would get from learning through the Bible or any other holy text that is descended from God or a very highly spiritual prophet or anything else that's relating. And then common sense. So like, oh, it's just common sense not to do X. So that's basically all in reason. This will basically be used heavily in epistemology. So we will delve deeper into this. The next topic is integrity. Integrity is a concern for consistency in thought, word, and deed. It is the opposite of hypocrisy. A hypocrite will give what appears to be a good argument, but when examined, it's typically not. And a hypocrite may examine others' views without letting their views be examined. So then integrity means to give a good, solid, consistent argument while allowing your own views to be examined. This is what is very important to find and distinguish. A lot of people will go very, very, very openly and express their opinion about how others are wrong. But they will not be willing, when shown a good argument or anything, to question their own views. And typically people think that just because somebody is questioning others' views, that means that they are rude. But within philosophy, if you question others' views and your own, and you're open to questioning and intervention within your own views, then it's kind of seen as honorable, because you want to be searching for truth. You want that attitude of wisdom, right, that we talked about in the last episode. You want to be showing your love of wisdom. You want that greater truth. If you tend to have this revelation that something is not the way that you've always thought it would be, then isn't that great? How is that bad? That's a good thing. Now, within integrity, this is where logical fallacies tend to show their way, and we will speak more about these in either the core philosophy series or the epistemological series. I will disclose that information at a later date. And we will cover as many fallacies. We may just have a series of fallacy videos that we'll release on maybe this channel, maybe the core series. Yeah, we'll do it on the core series. I'll make up that decision now. And we'll just have maybe a couple episodes that will just explain fallacies, give examples, and why they're bad. Now, beyond that, we're going to move on to the third topic, which is rational perceptualism. This one is a little more complicated, but it's vital to really understand how philosophy works. You have to know that you use reason to examine one's beliefs. It is critical thinking at the base level. In general, we think of less basic and the less basic. Now, this sounds complex. Now, let me break it down to you. If I think that water bottle is red, like we were speaking about earlier with judgments, right? If I think that water bottle is red, that means I first have to have the understanding of the color red and what a water bottle is. There's the way that knowledge breaks down into simpler tiers. And through the understanding of the simpler tiers, we're able to construct knowledge. So I know the color red, and I know what a water bottle is. Therefore, with me knowing that information, I can construct judgments that are more complex, like a water bottle is red. Now, of course, it doesn't only apply to things like this. Let's say if we are trying to construct, like if somebody says, I believe in God, then let's break that down. Let's see, you can kind of induce, or at least deduct. You can do induction or deduction to a person's views without them ever saying what their other views are. You can hear them say, I believe in God. Now, typically when you believe in God, you believe in an eternal being, which means that you believe that it is possible for something to be eternal in the universe. So you instantly know that they believe that God exists, which is one metaphysical assumption. You also know that they believe that an eternal being exists. That's another metaphysical assumption. And then depending on the religion, you know if they believe it's possible to know everything and to be all-powerful, which are more metaphysical assumptions. You also can figure out if they believe that everything is spiritual or matter, or if matter is everything, like if it's epistemological, or if they maybe believe that both spirit and matter can exist simultaneously, which is called dualism. Really, you can figure out all these beliefs by breaking things down. That's why rational perceptualism is so important. This idea of working backwards is used with integrity and reason, and it allows you to really construct very, very strong beliefs and test your own beliefs. If you don't think that it's possible for a thing to be eternal, then maybe you don't believe in God. And that's very important. Or if you don't believe in God and you believe that something's eternal, maybe you believe in the fluctuation of the Big Bang. There was a universe, the universe went down to a point and then expanded. So maybe you believe that there is eternity within the temporal nature of the universe. Now the fourth is clarity. Some things are clear, the basic things are clear, and the basic things, good and evil, are clear to reason. So there's these three arguments. The first argument are that some things are clear, is true, because. So now we're going to do the argument. Well, number one, the opposite contradiction to something are clear is nothing is clear. So this all refers to the square of opposition, which I will explain at a later date, probably in the next episode, followed by fallacies. So I'll probably break down into these arguments, but basically there's three arguments. Some things are clear, the basic things are clear, and the basic things, good and evil, and God and man, are clear to reason. These three arguments I'll explain in the next episode. So, clarity is basically when you have this consistency in your worldview, and you're able to analyze other beliefs and have a true understanding of your own beliefs. Now, if a person has clarity within their own beliefs, is it bad for them to then change their beliefs because somebody else gives a good argument that's rational and applies to all the common ground? No. It's actually looked of as bad if you are a person that is so stubborn and ignorant that you put your foot down. Because if you see greater truth and there's an argument that's better and proves this clarity to your position, then shouldn't you logically choose the greater truth? Yes. And that's kind of how it works. So now we've covered the four parts of common ground, being reason, integrity, rational perceptualism, and clarity. With these four aspects, common ground is able to allow philosophers of all kinds from everywhere around the world to speak about conflicting beliefs with the idea to pursue the greater truth. And that's the whole idea of common ground. And now that we have explained common ground and begun, we can now start with some philosophy. We'll start into argumentation in the next episode, and then following that, we'll do some fallacies. And once we finish that, we may start up our epistemological series. Well, with that, thank you, and always stay curious in the mystery. Chris is signing off.